My 10-year-old daughter was riding her bike and smiling. Everything was peaceful, until Karen came. Karen, the HOA president, was angry. She wore a red dress and held a cricket bat in her hand. She shouted, "Your daughter scratched my car!" My daughter stopped, scared. Before she could say anything, Karen ran toward her and swung the bat. My daughter screamed and fell to the ground, crying. My wife saw it happen, screamed too, and ran to save our daughter. Neighbors came out, shocked and silent. Karen stood there, breathing hard, looking proud of what she did. But she didn't know one thing. The little girl she attacked wasn't just anyone's daughter. She was the police chief's daughter. The morning began warm and peaceful, sunlight spreading slowly across the quiet neighborhood. Birds were singing from the trees. A dog barked somewhere down the street, and the smell of fresh grass filled the air. My 10-year-old daughter, Lily, was riding her small blue bike near the sidewalk, laughing as the wheels turned, her pink helmet shining in the sun. My wife stood on the porch with a cup of tea in her hands, smiling as she watched her. It was one of those rare mornings that felt perfect, calm, and safe. Nothing seemed wrong, not even for a second. But then, a sharp voice cut through the quiet air like a knife. "Stop right there." The words were loud and filled with anger. My wife turned quickly, confused by the sudden shouting. Lily's bike slowed down, her smile fading as she looked toward the sound. It was Karen, the HOA president, walking fast from her driveway. She was wearing a bright red dress that caught the sunlight and made her look even more furious. Her heels clicked hard on the pavement, and in one hand she was holding a cricket bat. Her face was red, her eyes narrow, her voice sharp like broken glass. "You scratched my car again," she yelled, pointing the bat straight toward Lily. The neighborhood seemed to freeze. Lily stopped completely, her bike wobbling before she set her feet on the ground. "I didn't, Mrs. Karen," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I didn't touch your car, I promise." But Karen didn't want to listen. She took another step forward, shaking her head. "You kids think you can do whatever you want. No respect for other people's property," she shouted, waving the bat slightly as she spoke. My wife stepped down from the porch, putting her tea aside. "Karen, please," she said quickly, her voice gentle but firm. "She's a little girl. She didn't do anything to your car. Calm down." Karen turned her glare toward her, her voice full of mockery. "Oh, sure, you'll say that because she's your daughter. You always think the rules don't apply to you." Lily looked scared now, her hands gripping the handlebars of her bike tightly. The air grew heavier, the cheerful morning fading into something cold and tense. Karen's voice grew louder, echoing off the houses. "Every week it's something new. Noise, bikes, scratches. None of you care about the community. I've told you before, I'll make sure the HOA finds you." My wife moved closer to Lily, her hand outstretched. "Karen, stop shouting. You're scaring her," she said. But Karen didn't stop. She raised the cricket bat slightly, her anger spilling out like fire. "Maybe this will teach her a lesson," she said, stepping closer. Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Please, I didn't do anything," she whispered. "I just wanted to ride my bike." Karen's voice grew even louder. "You people never take responsibility. You think you can just ignore me? Not in my neighborhood," she shouted. Her arm moved suddenly, the bat swinging down hard toward the ground near Lily's bike. The sound was loud, a sharp crack that made the entire street fall silent. The bat hit the pavement, sending a few pebbles scattering. Lily screamed in fear, the sound echoing through the neighborhood. She stumbled backward, tripping over her bike and falling onto the grass. My wife gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, then ran forward, shouting, "Lily!" Neighbors peeked out from their doors and windows. Some stepped onto their porches, whispering. A man across the street pulled out his phone, unsure if he should call the police. The birds that had been singing flew away, startled by the noise. Karen stood still, breathing heavily, the bat still in her hand. Her expression didn't show guilt, only anger and pride. My wife reached Lily, kneeling beside her. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she said quickly, brushing her hair away from her face. Lily was crying, her small hands shaking. "She scared me, Mommy," she whispered between sobs. My wife looked up at Karen, her face pale but filled with fury. "You could have hurt her," she shouted. "She's a child." Karen rolled her eyes and crossed her arms. "Maybe now she'll learn to stay out of trouble," she said coldly. "Rules exist for a reason." My wife stood up, still shaking, her voice trembling but strong. You've gone too far, Karen. You can't attack a child, Karen smirked. Attack? I didn't touch her. Don't be dramatic. You came after her with a bat, my wife said, pointing at the weapon still in Karen's hand. Everyone saw it. The neighbors nodded quietly, murmuring. But Karen didn't seem to care. She lifted her chin. I'll do what I have to do to protect this neighborhood. If you don't like it, maybe you should move. My wife held Lily close, whispering softly, trying to calm her down. The little girl's cries softened into quiet sobs, her face buried in her mother's shoulder. The scene was painful to watch. A mother comforting her child while the woman who caused it stood a few feet away, unashamed. Karen turned as if to walk back toward her house, still muttering about rules and fines. She didn't know that her day was about to change forever. She didn't know who she had just threatened. Because the sound that came next, the low growl of an engine coming down the road, belonged to the man she would soon regret crossing. The man who was already stepping out of his car, eyes wide as he saw the scene, was not just another neighbor. He was the police chief. And the girl crying in her mother's arms wasn't just anyone's daughter, she was his. The whole street had gone silent after that sound, the echo of the bat striking the ground still hanging in the air. The morning birds had disappeared, the laughter and calm from just moments ago, now replaced by fear. My wife's hands trembled as she pulled Lily into her arms, holding her tight, as if she could protect her from every bad thing in the world. It's okay, baby, it's okay, she whispered, her voice shaking. But her eyes were locked on Karen. That look, anger, disbelief, fear, it said everything. Karen was still standing there, gripping the bat like it was her badge of power. Her red dress fluttered in the small breeze, and her face was twisted with pride, as if she had won something. She shouted again, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. You see? This is what happens when you break the rules. I told you all I won't allow chaos in this neighborhood. People were peeking through windows now. Some were recording with their phones, others whispering to each other. A man across the street shook his head and muttered, She's lost it. A young woman said, Someone should call the police. Karen turned toward them, raising her voice. Don't you dare get involved. This is HOA business, she snapped. Her tone was sharp and commanding, like she actually believed she had real authority. But the neighbors didn't listen this time. They'd all seen what she'd done. Lily was still crying softly, her small hands clutching her mother's sleeve. Mommy, I didn't scratch her car, she said, tears rolling down her face. I didn't do anything. My wife hugged her tighter. I know, sweetheart, I know, she whispered, kissing her hair. Then she looked up again, her fear finally turning into pure anger. Karen, what's wrong with you? You can't threaten children with a bat, Karen sneered. Threaten? I was teaching her respect, she said. Your family has been breaking HOA rules for months. Bikes on the sidewalk, loud music, trash bins left out too long. I've had enough. My wife stood up, her voice rising. You don't touch my daughter. I don't care about your stupid rules. Karen took a step forward, and for a second everyone thought she might swing again. My wife instinctively stepped in front of Lily, shielding her. You need to leave, she said firmly. Karen pointed the bat at her. You think you're special because your husband's always gone? You people act like you own the street, she shouted. My wife's heart pounded, her breathing shaky. You need help, Karen, she said quietly. This is not normal. Karen laughed bitterly. Normal? I'm the only normal one here. The rest of you just don't. Follow the rules. And then from down the road came the faint sound of a car engine, the low growl of a black SUV pulling up fast. The noise made Karen pause for just a second. The car stopped suddenly in front of the house, the tires crunching against the pavement. The driver's door opened fast, and out stepped a man in a black jacket, eyes wide with confusion and anger. It was me. I'd just finished a long shift at the station when I got a text from my neighbor. You need to come home right now. It's Karen. It's bad. I didn't even finish reading it. I turned my car around and drove faster than I should have, my heart pounding in my chest. Now, standing there, the first thing I saw was my wife kneeling on the ground, holding our daughter. Lily's face was red from crying, her bike tipped over beside them. Then I saw Karen, standing with a cricket bat, shouting like she owned the world. The whole picture hit me like a punch to the stomach. What happened? I shouted, walking quickly toward them. My wife turned, her eyes filled with tears. She attacked Lily, she said, her voice breaking. She scared her half to death. Karen turned to face me, her face still flushed. "Oh, look who's here," she said sarcastically. "Maybe you can teach your kids some manners." I froze for a moment, staring at her, trying to process what she'd just said. "What did you say?" I asked slowly. She raised her chin proudly. "Your daughter scratched my car. I told her not to, but she didn't listen. So I gave her a warning." She tapped the bat on the ground like she was proud of herself. My wife stood, her voice trembling with anger. "You swung that bat at her. You terrified her." Karen crossed her arms. "She needed to learn," she said coldly. "You people think you're above the HOA rules. You're not." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but my hands were shaking. The neighbors were all watching now, whispering behind fences. One man muttered, "She's gone too far this time." Another said quietly, "He's the police chief. She's in trouble." Karen noticed their whispers and frowned. "What are they talking about?" she snapped. I reached into my jacket pocket slowly and pulled out my police badge. The metal caught the sunlight, flashing bright for everyone to see. "You attacked my daughter," I said, my voice low and steady. "And you didn't know who she was." Karen's eyes widened, her mouth slightly open. "Wait, you're the police chief," I finished for her. "And you just assaulted a child, my child." She took a step back, her hands trembling now. The bat hung loose in her grip. I didn't mean—" "Don't," I interrupted. "You meant every word, every swing. Everyone here saw it." The street was dead silent. You could hear nothing but the soft hum of a lawnmower far away and Lily's quiet sobs. My wife put a hand on my arm, whispering, "Please, just take care of this." I nodded slowly. "Go inside," I told her. "Stay with Lily." Karen's face was pale now. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president," she said quickly, her voice shaking. I stepped closer. "You think that means something? You think your clipboard and fake authority can protect you? You hurt a child." Her voice cracked. "It was an accident." I stared at her for a long moment, my eyes locked on hers. "No, it wasn't." Then I pulled out my phone and called dispatch. My voice stayed calm, even though my heart was racing. "This is Chief Harrison," I said. "I need a patrol unit at my home. Suspect in custody for child endangerment and assault." Karen froze, her mouth open. "You're arresting me?" I looked straight at her. "Yes, Karen," I said. "And believe me, this is me being polite." Karen's fake confidence started to crumble the second she saw the badge shine in the sunlight. The color drained from her face, her fingers tightening around the bat as if that wooden handle could still give her power. The crowd that had gathered on the sidewalk grew quiet. Even the whispering stopped. I took a slow step closer, keeping my voice calm but firm, the kind of voice that always made people listen at the station. "Put the bat down, Karen." She hesitated, eyes darting between me, my wife, and the neighbors who were all filming. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said quickly, her voice shaking for the first time. "Your kid, she was—" "Stop," I said. "You swung at a child. End of story." My wife stood behind me, one arm around Lily's shoulders. The little girl's face was still wet with tears, her small body trembling. I could feel her fear like a weight pressing against my chest. Every instinct inside me screamed to grab that bat out of Karen's hands, but years of training forced me to breathe, to stay steady, to handle it the right way. Karen finally lowered the bat a few inches but still held on to it. "You can't arrest me," she said. "I'm the HOA president. We have rules. I was enforcing them." I stared at her, hardly believing what I was hearing. "You think an HOA rule gives you the right to threaten a 10-year-old? She opened her mouth, searching for words that wouldn't come. The silence that followed was louder than any siren. From somewhere behind the fence, a neighbor muttered, "She's finished." I reached for my phone and dialed dispatch. "This is Chief Harrison. I have an assault situation at my residence." "Send a patrol unit," I said evenly, never taking my eyes off Karen. She blinked in disbelief. "You're serious?" "Completely," I replied. "You're lucky I'm not cuffing you myself." She laughed nervously, a short, fake sound that didn't reach her eyes. "You wouldn't do that. We're neighbors. You stopped being a neighbor the second you lifted that bat." The sound of sirens grew in the distance. The faint wail rolled through the quiet street, echoing off the houses. Karen looked around frantically, realizing the attention was no longer in her control. Phones were still pointed at her. One man whispered, "He's really the police chief." The red of her dress seemed almost too bright now, like a warning light. When the first patrol car turned the corner, she backed away a step. I didn't hurt her. Look, she's fine, she said, pointing toward Lily, who flinched at the motion. Fine, I repeated softly. You made her afraid to ride her bike. You made her cry in front of the whole neighborhood. You call that fine? The cruiser stopped in front of the house. 2 officers I'd worked with for years stepped out, recognizing me immediately. Chief, one said. I nodded once. Handle this by the book. They approached Karen slowly. Ma'am, please put the bat down, Officer Dawson said. She shook her head. No, you don't understand. This is a misunderstanding. The other officer moved a little closer, calm but firm. Ma'am, drop the bat. Her hands trembled. For a moment I thought she might actually listen, but then she shouted, You're all against me! The bat clattered to the pavement as she finally let it go, the sound of wood against concrete, final and hollow. Dawson picked it up and set it aside. Turn around, ma'am, he said quietly. Karen's eyes met mine. There was panic now, not anger. Please, she whispered. I didn't mean to scare her. I didn't move. You did, I said. You just didn't expect consequences. The officers gently took her wrists, clipped the handcuffs and read her rights. The metallic click echoed across the yard. My wife held Lily tighter, whispering to her that everything was okay. As they walked Karen toward the car, she kept talking, her voice breaking between anger and tears. This is ridiculous. I was protecting the neighborhood. You'll regret this. I didn't answer. I just stood there watching the woman who had spent years bullying everyone finally face something she couldn't control, the law. When the car door closed, the siren lights flashed red and blue across the houses, painting the street in colors of justice. The neighbors stood quietly, no one cheering, no one speaking. It wasn't a moment for celebration. It was relief, heavy, quiet relief. I turned toward my family. My wife's eyes met mine, full of both gratitude and exhaustion. Is it really over? She asked softly. I knelt beside Lily, brushing a tear from her cheek. It's over, sweetheart. You're safe now. She nodded, sniffling, her small hand gripping mine. I thought she was gonna hurt me, she whispered. Not anymore, I said. I won't let anyone hurt you. The officers finished taking statements from a few witnesses, then approached me. Chief, we'll file the report tonight. You good? Dawson asked. I nodded. Thanks, Dawson. Make sure the footage from everyone here is collected. I want a clean case. He smiled slightly. Yes, sir. As the patrol car drove away with Karen inside, the street slowly came back to life. People started talking again, quietly at first. One woman walked up to my wife and said, I'm so sorry. None of us ever stood up to her. She scared everyone. My wife gave a tired smile. She won't anymore. I looked around at the faces. Neighbors who'd lived in fear of HOA fines and Karen's temper for years. For the first time, they looked free. The sunlight that had seemed harsh earlier now felt warm again. A gentle breeze moved through the trees, carrying away the tension that had filled the air all morning. Lily tugged on my sleeve. Daddy, can I ride my bike again someday? She asked. I smiled softly. Yes, baby. But maybe not today. Let's rest first. She nodded, leaning her head against my arm. When we finally went inside, the house felt different, quieter, safer. The red and blue flashes faded from the windows, replaced by the soft glow of afternoon light. I closed the door and took a deep breath. The job had always been about protecting people, but this time it was personal. This time, it was my own family. I looked out the window one last time. The street was calm, the neighbors dispersing, the patrol car gone. My wife placed a hand on my shoulder and whispered, Thank you. I turned toward her and said, It's what I do. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It wasn't just duty, it was love. And as I held my daughter that evening, the promise I made to myself was simple. No one, not even someone hiding behind rules and power, would ever make my family afraid again. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her face turned pale like she had seen a ghost. The red color of her dress was the only bright thing left in that moment, glowing under the harsh morning light as the world around her froze. You're the police chief? She whispered, her voice shaking. I took one slow step toward her. Yes, I said, my voice low but firm. And you just attacked my daughter. Her hand trembled, her eyes wide. I didn't mean... Save it, I said sharply, cutting her off. You hit a child because of a car. That's assault. My wife stood next to me now, still holding Lily close to her chest. Her voice cracked with anger. "She could have killed her," she shouted. Karen looked around helplessly. Every neighbor was out now, watching, recording, whispering. The people she used to scare with HOA rules and fines were finally seeing her for what she really was. All the fake power she had built, gone in one single act of rage. Karen's voice came out small, trembling. "I was following HOA rules," she said weakly. I shook my head slowly. "Rules don't give you the right to hurt people," I said, "especially not children." She stepped back, trying to defend herself. "It wasn't like that. She scratched my car. She needed to learn." My wife's voice rose again, breaking from anger and heartbreak. "She's 10 years old," she cried. "You terrified her for nothing." The sound of sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Backup coming fast. I had already called it in, but now the noise felt louder, closer, like justice racing down the street. Karen turned toward me again, desperate now. "Please, I didn't mean to. It was just a mistake." "No, Karen," I said, my voice steady. "A mistake is forgetting to pay a fine. A mistake is parking in the wrong spot. This," I pointed at the bat lying on the ground. "This was violence. This was you losing control." She covered her face with one hand, muttering under her breath. "They'll think I'm a criminal." I looked at her calmly. "You are—" For a second, she froze. Then she laughed nervously, her voice cracking. "You wouldn't dare press charges. We live in the same neighborhood." "What will people think?" "They'll think the truth," I said coldly. "That the woman who thought she was above everyone finally met someone who wasn't afraid of her." The patrol car pulled up to the curb, lights flashing red and blue against the white fences. 2 officers stepped out, young, sharp, and ready. They saw me and nodded immediately. "Chief," one of them said. I nodded back, motioning toward Karen. "She's the one." Karen turned toward them, eyes wide with panic. "Wait, no, please, this is a misunderstanding. I'm the HOA president. This is all just blown out of proportion." The younger officer, Dawson, shook his head. "Ma'am, we have multiple witnesses. We're going to need to talk to you." Karen started to cry then, big fake tears rolling down her cheeks. "You can't do this. I was protecting the neighborhood." I folded my arms. "From what? A 10-year-old girl on a bicycle?" Her shoulders dropped, and for a moment she looked small. Not powerful, not scary, just sad and broken. But then, just as quickly, she tried to straighten up again. "You're ruining my reputation," she hissed. "You did that yourself," I said quietly. The officers approached her carefully. "Ma'am, please turn around," Dawson said. Karen shook her head, stepping back. "No, this is wrong. He's using his power against me." "Karen," I said, my patience running thin, "if you don't cooperate, this will get worse." She looked at me one last time, her face a mix of anger, fear, and disbelief, then finally turned around. Dawson took her wrists gently and put the cuffs on. The metallic click echoed through the air. The neighbors didn't cheer, didn't clap. They just watched in silence. After years of being pushed around by her, they couldn't believe this was really happening. Karen kept talking as they led her toward the patrol car. "You'll regret this. All of you will. I was just doing my job." I ignored her. I turned toward Lily, who was sitting on the porch now, my wife's arm around her shoulders. She looked so small and tired, her bike lying in the grass beside her. I knelt down next to her and smiled gently. "It's okay now, sweetheart," I said softly. "She can't hurt anyone anymore." Lily wiped her eyes. "Is she going to jail, Daddy?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, for a little while. Because what she did was wrong." She nodded too, leaning into her mother's arms. "I was scared," she whispered. My wife kissed the top of her head. "I know, baby. It's over now." I stood up, exhaling slowly, watching as the officers guided Karen into the car. She sat there, still yelling, still trying to act like she was in control, but her voice didn't sound powerful anymore. It sounded desperate. The car door shut, muffling her voice. The sirens flicked once, then faded as the car drove away down the road. The neighbors began to disperse, whispering quietly. A few of them came up to me. One man said, "About time someone stopped her." A woman added, "She's been terrorizing this neighborhood for years." I nodded, still watching the patrol car disappear. "Not anymore," I said simply. My wife touched my arm, her eyes tired but calm. "You okay?" I smiled faintly. I'm fine now. Just angry that it ever happened. She nodded slowly. She thought she was untouchable. People like her always do, I said. The street was quiet again now. The sun was still shining, but it didn't feel as warm. Lily was safe, but the peace we'd had that morning was gone, stolen by one person's pride and rage. As I picked up the fallen cricket bat from the ground, I looked at it for a long time. A simple piece of wood, harmless until someone uses it for the wrong reasons. I set it aside near the fence, away from sight. Then I took my wife's hand. "Come inside," I said softly. "Let's just be together for a while." She nodded, leading Lily toward the porch. The door closed behind us, and for the first time all day, there was silence. No shouting, no threats, no fear. Just the quiet of a home finally safe again. The day Karen was arrested, the whole neighborhood finally exhaled. For years, people had whispered about her rules, her fines, her threats. She had written letters, taken photos, filed fake complaints, and bullied anyone who dared to stand up to her. But this time, there were no letters she could write, no fake authority she could hide behind. She had crossed the one line you never cross. She had hurt a child. When the police car drove away that day, silence filled the street. Neighbors who had once avoided looking out their windows now stood openly, watching. One woman wiped a tear. Another man muttered, "It's over." My wife held Lily close, her arms wrapped around her like a shield. I could still see fear in my daughter's eyes, but there was something else too. Safety. She knew it was over. That night, the station called me to update the report. Karen was booked for assault and child endangerment. She had tried to argue with the officers, claiming it was an accident and that she was just enforcing neighborhood rules. But every witness told the same story. The shouting, the bat, the fear. There was no escaping the truth. 2 days later, I was called to testify in court. As much as I hated reliving it, I knew it had to be done. Not just for my daughter, but for every person Karen had bullied. When I walked into the courthouse, the air felt heavy and cold. My uniform felt heavier than usual. I wasn't there as a police chief, I was there as a father. Karen sat across the room, wearing a dull gray suit instead of her usual red dress. Her hair was messy, her face pale, but her eyes still carried that same pride, that same I did nothing wrong look she always wore. She wouldn't even look at me. Her lawyer, a tall man with slicked hair, kept whispering to her, but she barely listened. The judge entered, a middle-aged man with calm eyes and a serious tone. The courtroom stood, then sat. The proceedings began. The prosecutor laid out the case clearly. On the morning of June 4th, the defendant, Karen Blake, attacked a 10-year-old child with a cricket bat, causing physical and emotional harm. The child was unharmed only by chance. Multiple witnesses confirmed this act of aggression. Karen's lawyer stood, his voice smooth and controlled. "Your Honor, my client did not attack anyone. She acted out of concern for her property and neighborhood safety. She did not make contact with the child. This case is a misunderstanding." The judge nodded slowly, then turned to me. "Chief Harrison, please come to the stand." I stood, walked forward, and took my oath. My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed steady. That morning I arrived home to find my daughter crying, my wife shaken, and the defendant holding a cricket bat. She admitted to confronting my daughter over a supposed scratch on her car. She swung the bat in anger. Whether or not it hit her doesn't matter. She used violence to intimidate a child. Karen's lawyer interrupted. "Objection. Speculation." The judge raised a hand. "Overruled. Continue, Chief." I looked straight at Karen. She avoided my eyes, staring down at her folded hands. "I've served as a police officer for over 15 years, I said. I've seen people lose control before, but what I saw that day wasn't just anger, it was entitlement. She believed her rules were more important than a child's safety." The courtroom stayed silent. Even the sound of papers stopped. The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Then it was Karen's turn to speak. She stood slowly, hands shaking, voice trembling but still proud. "I didn't mean to scare anyone," she said. "I've worked hard to make our neighborhood safe and organized. I was under stress. The child was careless, and I—" The judge interrupted softly. "You thought hitting something near her would teach her a lesson?" Karen froze. I lost my temper," she said finally. The judge sighed, leaning back in his chair. Mrs. Blake, your position as HOA president does not grant you the right to use fear or force. You abused your authority and endangered a child. That is not leadership. That is cruelty. Her lawyer tried to speak again, but the judge raised a hand. Enough. I've heard enough. He turned to me. Chief Harrison, I'm sorry your family had to go through this. I nodded quietly. Thank you, Your Honor. The judge faced Karen again. Mrs. Blake, you are hereby found guilty of misdemeanor assault and child endangerment. You will serve 6 months in county jail and attend mandatory anger management sessions. You are also permanently banned from serving on any homeowners association board. Karen gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. 6 months? You can't. I didn't hurt anyone. The judge's voice was calm but final. You hurt more than you realize. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. It was over. As the officers led Karen away, she looked at me for the first time. Her expression wasn't angry anymore. It was empty, like she finally understood what she'd done. I didn't say a word. There was nothing left to say. Outside the courthouse, the sunlight was bright, almost blinding. My wife was waiting with Lily, holding her hand. When they saw me, they smiled softly. Lily ran up and hugged me tight. Did the bad lady go away, Daddy? I nodded, kneeling to her level. Yes, sweetheart, she's gone now. She smiled a little. Can I ride my bike again? I felt my throat tighten. Of course, I said softly. You can ride it wherever you want. My wife put her hand on my shoulder. It's finally over, she said. I looked up at the sky, feeling the sun on my face. Yeah, I said quietly. Justice is done. The day felt lighter. The air seemed clearer, and as we walked to the car together, my wife, my daughter, and me, I knew one thing for certain: the neighborhood would never fear Karen again. The days after the court hearing felt strange at first. The house was quiet again, but the silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. The fear that had filled our street for so long was gone. It was as if the whole neighborhood could finally breathe again. Every morning, sunlight touched the same white fences, the same green lawns, but everything felt different now. It felt free. Karen's red mailbox still stood in front of her house, but her curtains were closed, her yard empty. She had been ordered to sell the property after her release, and word spread quickly that she wouldn't be coming back. For years, that house had been the center of tension and gossip. Now it was just another house, quiet and harmless. Some neighbors said it still felt strange to walk past it. Others said it finally looked normal without her standing outside watching everyone. The HOA board wasted no time removing her from her position. At the next meeting, they voted unanimously to replace her. For the first time, the HOA meeting didn't sound like a courtroom. People laughed, shared ideas, and talked about small improvements for the park and the playground. It was the first time I'd seen the community working together instead of living in fear. Lily started smiling again within a week. She asked to ride her bike every morning, but the first time she went out after the incident, she hesitated at the edge of the driveway. My wife knelt beside her and said gently, It's okay now, sweetheart. No one's going to yell at you anymore. Lily nodded, climbed on her bike, and started pedaling slowly. I stood by the porch, watching her circle the street, her laughter filling the air again. The same laugh that Karen's anger had silenced was now louder and brighter than before. My wife sat next to me on the steps, a cup of tea in her hands. The afternoon light painted everything gold. The fences, the grass, even the cracked sidewalk looked softer. She watched Lily for a long moment, her smile small but real. She's brave, she said quietly. I nodded, my eyes still following our daughter. She gets it from her mother. My wife laughed softly and shook her head. No, she said. She gets it from both of us. There was something healing about that sound. Laughter. Simple and true. For months, the neighborhood had only known shouting and anger. Now there were sounds of kids playing, dogs barking, sprinklers running. Life had returned. Neighbors who once avoided eye contact now waved at each other. One evening, Mr. Jenkins from across the street stopped by with his wife. They brought flowers for Lily and a note that said, "For the bravest little girl on the block." My wife's eyes filled with tears as she read it. Lily smiled shyly and said, "Thank you." Jenkins smiled back and said, "You remind us all what courage looks like." That night, after Lily went to bed, my wife and I sat on the porch again. The stars were out, scattered like silver dust across the dark sky. The air was cool and quiet, the kind of calm you can only feel after surviving a storm. My wife leaned her head on my shoulder. "Do you ever think she'll remember it?" she asked softly. I sighed. "Maybe," I said, "but I think she'll remember how it ended, not how it began. She'll remember that her mom ran to protect her, and her dad made sure justice was served." She nodded slowly. "That's enough." I looked across the street, at the now empty house with the red mailbox. A for sale sign stood in the yard. The porch light was off. No footsteps, no shouting, no HOA letters taped to doors. Just quiet. The neighborhood finally had peace. When new people eventually moved into Karen's house, they were a young couple with 2 kids and a golden retriever. On their first day, they came over to introduce themselves. "We heard this was a nice neighborhood," the husband said. My wife smiled. "It is now." That weekend, the new family hosted a small barbecue and invited everyone. Kids played in the yards, people shared food, and for the first time, the community truly felt like a community. The sound of laughter and music filled the air, mixing with the smell of grilled food and fresh-cut grass. Even the sunset seemed brighter that evening, as if the sky itself was celebrating. Lily ran around with the other children, her pink helmet shining in the light. At one point, she came running toward me, holding her bike by the handlebars. "Daddy, look," she said proudly. "I can ride faster now." I laughed and clapped. "That's my girl." She grinned from ear to ear and pedaled off again, the wind catching her hair. My wife wrapped her arm around me. "She's happy again," she said. I nodded. That's all I ever wanted. As the night settled and people began heading home, the streetlights flickered on. The soft hum of crickets filled the air. I stood at the edge of the yard looking at the peaceful scene before me. Families waving goodbye, kids giggling, porch lights glowing one by one. That's when I realized something. Peace isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of safety. It's knowing that your family can laugh again without fear. It's seeing your daughter ride her bike without looking over her shoulder. The world wasn't perfect, but in that moment, our little corner of it was. I turned to my wife and smiled. "You know," I said, "maybe now this really can be a good neighborhood." She smiled back, leaning against me. "Because of you," she said. I shook my head. "Because of us." The porch light flickered softly as the wind moved through the trees. Lily's bike rested against the fence, her helmet hanging from the handlebars. The red mailbox across the street was just another mailbox now, harmless, forgotten. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace, real peace.